Welcome to the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life. My name is Kyle Case, and I'll be your host on this amazing journey as we attempt to help you get the most out of your life. Today's guest, Dr. Mike Studer, is a nationally and internationally recognized expert in neurologic, physical therapy, aging, and brain health. With over 3 decades of experience, Mike has spoken in all 50 of the United States and across 6 continents, bringing a powerful blend of science, motivation, and real-world application to rehabilitation as well as performance. He's a board-certified neurologic PT, educator, researcher, and co-founder of Spark Rehabilitation and Wellness in Bend, Oregon. Mike is also the only physical therapist in the United States to be named Clinician of the Year by both the Neurologic and Geriatric Academies, and is also a Catherine Worthingham Fellow, one of the highest honors in his profession. Beyond his clinical and academic impact, he's an author, a consultant to elite athletes, and even a world record holder for the fastest underwater treadmill marathon, a mark that was set most recently in January of 2022. His work centers on helping people extend not just their lifespan, but their health span with purpose and vitality. Mike, welcome to the show.
Kyle, thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, we are going to cover as much of this as we can. We're definitely not going to be able to get into everything, but I've got to start with the underwater treadmill marathon. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, very briefly, that happened first by accident in 2012 as a fundraising venture. I was part of a national effort to raise money doing an underwater treadmill. And once we got 6 miles into it, our site was the only site that didn't have rotating members every 6 miles. So I realized when I watched the other sites changing out people, I was in it and the only one in it for the long haul.
You had maybe missed the memo on the rotation there.
Yes. Yeah.
So do you run with your head above water, or are you diving?
It's about shoulder depth,
Okay.
clavicle, shoulder depth, and it's actually much easier than a land-based marathon. So Kyle and listeners, don't give me too much credit for holding the world record. I'm only running against 60% of my own body weight.
And that is true for sure, but there's also some resistance that's in there. What a fun record, though. Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate keeping your eye on the record and every time it gets beat?
I will keep my eye on it. If it were to be broken, there's still some margin and the max out of the treadmill that I could up my game.
Well, I wish you the very best of luck with that for sure. We're going to dig into some more important matters here, and not that an underwater treadmill isn't important. I don't want to downplay the importance of that, but I know that you've spent your professional career studying brain health, understanding how it all works together. I understand that you're undertaking a personal study to basically deconstruct and then rebuild from the ground up all the skills that are necessary neurologically, physically, to be a successful pickleball player. Tell us about this mission that you're on right now.
So the very short story is I'm a baseball player and had been for the first 19 years of my life. I attempted to walk on to the University of Missouri. I was a switch hitting, undersized second baseman and shortstop. And so I've always been a student of every game that I played. Self-taught tennis and became fairly accomplished with that, and the list goes on and on. When I saw an opportunity to take my history as a triathlete, history as an accomplished marathoner, into something else that intrigued me for brain health, body health, social health, and all the things, I decided to deconstruct pickleball, try to teach myself several different types of serves, learn the singles game very well, and it just went on from there, and now is something that is what I have written about in some of my books, a novel experience that is just like learning a new language or a new musical instruments. It's for brain health, but as it goes on, I also get body health and social connection.
I'm curious, why pickleball?
Well, pickleball is, as James Clear wrote in his 2018 book, Atomic Habits, it's easy, it's affordable, it's obvious, it's logical. Kyle, it's 2.5 miles from me here in Northwest, very rural Las Vegas, but I have free pickleball courts and I can play 12 months of the year because I can get up early and beat the heat. So pickleball is attractive to me. I've always been a ping pong player as well. And the spin that I can put using a paddle and a ball is something that I have an affinity for, and it is a nuanced portion of the game. So I really am drawn to that aspect of it.
So let's talk a little bit about the neurological, the cognitive, the brain health side of pickleball.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes when we think of sports and activities, we default to the physical side of things. And rightfully so, that's an important part of what you're doing there. But there is something about the cognitive health, the brain health that comes along with that as well. As an expert in this area, dig into that a little bit for us.
So outside of nutrition and sleep, there's three main ways to get yourself brain health. You've already mentioned one of them, and that is the body feeding the brain, because we know the exercise that we do releases a lot of anti-inflammatories. It gives us antidepressants and the blood flow that gets to the brain. All right, so that's great. Also, learning a new skill, as I just mentioned, is brain healthy. Now let's move into the second of the three, cognitive. All right, understanding where is my opponent standing? Where should I serve right now? What's the score? You've got cognitive health, and we also know that pickleball is what we call an open skill rather than like running or cycling, a closed skill where I'm going one direction and I don't have to interact with the environment quite as much. Every single volley, I've got to make myself go where the ball has been hit. That's point number two. Point number three for brain health also is psychological resilience. Can I still play my best when I'm down 1-10? Can I still finish a game when I'm at game point? So I have body feeding brain, cognitive, the, schematics and the strategy of the game, but also psychological health.
So there's a lot going on there, obviously. And that's one of the things that I personally love about pickleball as a sport, and certainly as one of our sports here at the Huntsman World Senior Games. I am not an expert in pickleball. I'm barely a player. It's not one that I have been able to adapt to yet, although I love it when we get out there and play just for fun recreationally. But there is so much going on. You mentioned the social aspects of it earlier as well. One of the big pluses of pickleball is the social aspect. Can you tell us a little bit about how important that role plays in our overall brain health?
Well, that's particularly curious, especially to me, because you have a collection of friends, people you expect to see when you go to any pickleball court in any community on regularity. And so now you're making connections with people, you're learning about them, you're benefiting from their experiences. And always, that is an antidepressant, just like owning a pet is, having more connections. And there's a lot of resilience to be had when you learn another person's story. You see people with Parkinson's disease playing pickleball, and that actually has a lot of mental resilience for any affliction that we might, be faced with later in years. Oh, but I saw a person with Parkinson's disease or a person with an amputation do this. I should be able to do that as well. So there's a lot of mental health to be gained through what we call vicarious experiences there. There's so much to be said. And Kyle, you know this, the most recent U.S. Surgeon General said, unintentional loneliness is like smoking 16 cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
So if I don't want that unintentional solitude and I want to get some community, I'm doing the positive of all of that negative.
There's so much good that comes from that social aspect. You quoted the 15, 16 cigarettes a day. We use that all the time. And we know here at the games, at the Huntsman World Senior Games, that it is very hard to be unintentionally lonely when you are practicing pickleball, softball, basketball, you're hitting these weekend tournaments, all the things that go along with it, the social things that go along with competitive sport go so far to help offset that potential downside of the loneliness, which our athletes just don't experience as regularly in their lives. I'm curious, as you're preparing to take on this new sport, you're obviously in the midst of it right now. Do you anticipate that you'll be playing in tournaments? Do you just do it for practice? What does that look like on your side?
Kyle, I appreciate that question very much. I am a very unique person, and I'm going to undertake my first match at the October 12th opening of the pickleball venue as my first tournament ever as a singles pickleball player. And I'm doing that for a couple of intentional reasons. I'm keeping up my running mileage per week, my weightlifting, etc. I'm playing pickleball 2 and really never more than 3 per week. I want to add to my psychological, cognitive, social health, but I don't want to experience a opportunity cost and lose in anything else. So I'm not going all in. I'm being very investigatory as a scientist to see how I do with this rather than making it my new everything and dropping other friends and social opportunities and disrupting sleep and running schedule, etc.
I love that approach. I think that's very interesting. You mentioned as a scientist, you're really going after this for data analysis to understand the process. Many of our athletes end up either picking up a new sport that they never done before, they never competed or participated before, or a sport that they competed in many, many years ago, and then for any number of good reasons, raising a family, career, whatever, had to set it aside, and now they're coming back to it. I'm wondering if you can tell us from a physical as well as from a neurological standpoint, what do most of us get wrong when we either come back to that old sport or we pick up something new?
Well, I would put it to you in one word: accountability. Okay. And sometimes those of us that seek out competition are competitive. And if we hold ourselves to our prior standards, let's say, I need to be able to get a less than 7-minute mile when I'm running a 5K. Or I need to win every match, otherwise I'm not winning in pickleball. So the level of accountability or perfectionism that we hold ourselves to can actually be something that subtracts from the experienced athlete who has history in this game or who has history of being a competitive athlete. It can be more balanced and healthy for us in total if we're willing to be experimental and, again, scientific and, dare I say, playful. And that's exactly how I'm approaching this. So when I go out and play against a 24-year-old on a regular basis, a common singles player, or a 38-year-old who has a lot of experience in pickleball, I don't hold myself accountable to the wins against them, but I'm experimenting with this serve and that return and learning rather than winning as my emphasis.
I really love your scientific approach to it, and I'm not sure that my pride would allow me to do that. When I'm whatever it is, like, I feel like I go all in, and I can see that there are some negatives to that. I think there are some positives as well. I think we both agree to that. But, I appreciate your very methodical scientific approach, and we're
Yeah.
excited to see the outcome of this study and very excited that we're a part of it, where we're going to be the first competitive game that you play. So we're definitely gonna keep our eyes open for that. Uh,
Yeah.
I wanna shift gears just a little bit if I can. I'm doing some just personal research on brain health.
Mm.
I've mentioned on the show before, I've got dementia in my family. It's something that's very much on my mind as I'm aging and things like that. I'm hearing a phrase more and more now, and I'm wondering if you can explain it a little bit to us. It's dual tasking. What does that mean? Help us understand what that is for brain health and how we can accomplish that in our everyday life.
So, Kyle, I'll be very careful because I teach 7-hour courses on dual tasking. So we're going to keep this down to a minute and a half answer. Dual tasking is doing two separate things that do not have the same objective at the same time. So the old adage of walking and chewing gum, you could stop chewing gum but continue walking. You could stop walking and continue chewing gum, but you're doing them at the same time. Walking and texting, all of the things. We normally put movement in the background because we subject ourselves to dual tasking. That's very healthy so that movement becomes very automatized. It's also very healthy for your brain to have skills that you don't need to think about. Now, let's separate that out from something that doesn't offer the same amount of health, and that's called multitasking. Now, when you do 3 or more things or attempt to combine 2 cognitive things, you're multitasking. And that is just working on your brain's ability to task switch. But you're never getting better at either one of the things because you're never learning them deeply. So I'll succinctly end with the fact that dual tasking is healthy for you to learn both of the things better so that when you're only doing one of them, like Steph Curry trying to dribble 2 basketballs, is very proficient at one. When you take the second away, you get better at the first. But when you're multitasking, you're never actually improving in any of them. You're just improving your ability to spin plates.
So I want to dig just a little bit deeper, then we'll move on to something else. You talked about Steph Curry and 2 balls. Obviously, in the sport of pickleball, there's a lot of that going on, as you mentioned earlier in your description of pickleball. Give us a couple of other examples that we can think about. One that might be sports related that would speak to somebody who's already an athlete and getting ready for the upcoming games. And maybe one that is not so sports related, but could be applied by just anybody on the street.
Okay, I've got 2 for you. I'll make them quick. Number 1, you go to the pickleball court tomorrow morning. You meet 3 people you've never met. While you engage in the game, can you still remember their names by the time you're done with a match playing those people or not playing with them? So now you have to suspend what you've encoded in your brain and stay engaged with the task of playing pickleball. That's divided attention. That's dual tasking because occasionally during the match, you're going to have to reiterate their names. Dual tasking. Okay, here's the second example. I'm going to bend down for a moment. While we've been on this interview, I've been balancing on a board. That's a separate task from having to answer your questions. An individual who has Zoom meetings in business, because you asked me for a business-based example, could be doing standing balance, and they're doing their balance activities. Oh my gosh, I don't have time to do my balance exercises. But if you habit stack, you do. And that's called habit stacking, but that's also dual tasking because those 2 are entirely separate tasks. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Great examples. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about some of your experience. In my bio, I mentioned that you've worked with elite athletes. You've obviously also worked with the rest of us, non-elite athletes. What are the biggest lessons that you learn that you see in athletes specifically throughout your career? Things that, maybe low-hanging fruit that all of us could think about as we're trying to get better or just live a better, active, healthier life that we should be aware of?
Now, this is an important one. I teach 3-hour classes on fear and 7-hour classes on something that some of your listeners will be familiar with, functional neurologic disorders. And if I put it in the term of the yips, even more of you will be familiar with it. Okay, so now let's take that question headlong. In 1983, I was a freshman in high school, varsity starting third baseman, and I experienced the yips. And then why am I and how am I answering your question? Starting with that, here's the answer. We get too focused on our errors, and we get so focused on the errors that we made that we let our brain become vicious cycled into everything we can do to prevent the next error rather than letting it go and still being curious and playful to see if you can actually learn from the error, i.e. Kobe Bryant. I'm going to take another game-winning shot and learn from it. So having been an individual that went through that, learning how to get unfocused on my throw, helping professional Major League Baseball players overcome the yips and other athletes, divers, and the list goes on, we understand that there's nothing to be gained from ruminating or perseverating on errors. Mental health, physical performance, skill capacity, nothing to be gained. So move it, just like we talked about 10 minutes ago, toward play, toward experimentation, toward learning about yourself, and potentially gamifying. Oh my gosh, I've hit 7 serves in a row rather than focusing on the one you just missed.
So I love that advice. How do you do it? How do you actually apply it?
So, first thing you know is that you realize from a cognitive behavioral therapy standpoint, basically, we call it a top down, you rationalize to yourself and you say, that wouldn't be healthy for me to focus on that. It actually raises my cortisol and makes it more likely for me to make the next error. So I'm either not going to try that approach at a serve, and maybe the next time I go to the court to go practice, I'm going to drill that serve. So you permit yourself to not attempt that serve anymore, that specific type of spin or direction, and say, I just learned something there. I want to get better at that. A second thing is play to play, right? So rather than play to win, like I mentioned earlier, if you can play to experiment, that's going to keep you from being punitive as well. And the third thing is that gamification, one of the 4 ways of gamifying is using streaks. Give yourself a mulligan. And we talk about that all the time in mental health literature, psychology podcasts, happiness podcasts. Everybody talks about a streak, but giving yourself a mulligan. And that'd be my third piece of advice there. A mulligan, if you're not familiar with it, is the permission to keep your streak alive, even though you interrupted it one time.
Again, I think great advice. You mentioned earlier, and we've talked about the Huntsman World Senior Games being your very first competitive pickleball tournament. You're saving yourself for the game, so to speak. I appreciate that. Tell us what you see as success after the first tournament is over and you're ready to move on to the next thing in your life.
Kyle, this isn't going to surprise you at all when I tell you that I literally can earnestly say from the bottom of my heart, it's already a success. I was a little bit nervous that I wouldn't be able to make the sign up window because I know the registration fills quickly. But once I was signed up, it's already a success because just like reteaching myself to play the piano with a 40-year absence from piano, I'm already gifting myself brain health just by preparing for the senior games. And the Huntsman Senior Games is only an hour 45 from me. My wife and I are going to go over in an RV. We're going to have a great time. We're going to stay there for the week. We're looking forward to it. So now I get dopamine from the participation, the anticipation, and the training that I'm doing. So I'm getting brain health by serotonin, by dopamine. And in fact, if I can go in my training and teach other people, learn from other people, make social connections, I'm also getting oxytocin. Kyle, it's already a success. I could get beat 11-0 and be eliminated from the tournament, and I will literally be seen laughing off the court with joy of what I've already done.
I think that's such a great way to approach not only sports but life. I've talked about this before on the show, but my wife Mindy, um, she had some opportunities to compete as a youth, but then took a long time off, like many people do, to raise a family and all that kind of stuff. She got close to 50 years old. Being my wife, she knew that she had to do something at the game. She knew it was coming. She knew she had to do something. So she picked something that she wanted to do, that she was interested in. And she will say this, the hardest thing about it was sitting down and registering and signing up. And everything after that, once you made that decision, all the things that you've talked about, all those hormones, the positive reinforcement, all that stuff came into play for her. She's now a 4-year athlete. She loves it. She wouldn't miss it. And if she had not taken advantage of the chance to overcome that initial fear, she would have missed out on so much. And so I love that approach. And I think that you're right. It is already a success. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, Kyle, and thanks for what you do to offer the games and for the St. George community for hosting it.
It's an amazing thing for sure. And again, we're looking forward to meeting you in person, but also seeing the results of your study. So we wish you the very best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple of things to wrap us up here. I want to remind everybody that registration is indeed open. As we've already talked about, we're a little more than 3.5, 4 weeks into registration, almost a month in, I guess, but we are almost at 4,000 total athletes already. It's not too late, but you do want to register right now. It is the time to secure your spot at the Huntsman World Senior Games. You can do all of that as well as find the rules, the schedules, venues, everything you need to know. It's all available at seniorgames.net. The games run from October 5th through the 17th this year. Put that on your calendar and be a part of it this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. We want to remind you to tune in next and every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time on AM 1450 or FM 93.1 for the live Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life. We take this live show and turn it into a podcast, and you can find this show wherever you find your favorite podcast. If you're listening or watching by podcast, take a moment and give us a rating or write a review. That can really help us spread the word. You can also find this and previous shows on our website. Once again, that is seniorgames.net. Today's inspirational thought comes from Sheryl Sandberg, who once said, "If you're offered a seat on a rocket ship, don't ask what seat, just get on." Until next Thursday, stay active.